Hello and welcome, this is Rooflemonger, and my friends, Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath Edition is right around the corner as of the time I'm making this video. And you know what? Gameplay-wise, balance-wise, Mortal Kombat 11 is in fairly good shape. However, that all said, Shao Kahn, hey, the reason for this video, he's pretty much indebatably the worst character in the game. And with Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath coming, it is my sincerest hope that, hey, there is some balance changes and hopefully some system changes as well coming around the corner. And with that said, I have fought long and hard for various characters in this game over many videos over the course of Mortal Kombat 11's lifetime, chiefly for Kotal. And you know what? He eventually got what he needed. Maybe thanks to me? Almost certainly not, but hey, I'll take credit for it anyways, right? But yeah, and also Shao Kahn. Now, Kotal eventually got where he needed to go. Shao Kahn still needs that extra kick, right? So let's talk about what Shao Kahn needs in Mortal Kombat 11. So now, once again, right before we start here, Mortal Kombat 11's balance, like, you know, the tiers, if you will, is a lot more compressed than a lot of other modern fighters. There's a lot less of a gap between Shao Kahn and someone who's indebatably, you know, a very strong character like Liu Kang or Johnny Cage, than compared to another modern fighter like Dragon Ball FighterZ, where the gap between someone like a Videl and a Kid Buu is pretty big, right? So he's not as far away from the top characters as some tiers in other fighting games, but still, he definitely needs the help. So how I want to break it down is this: the stuff he needs to get, and the stuff that would be very nice if he got. And if you take it all together and he gets everything I say in this video, well, I still don't think he's as good as Johnny Cage or Liu Kang, but it will most certainly be a big boon to the character. Alright, so the first one here, the need buff. And I've said this, I don't even know how many times now since like last year MK11 has been out. Probably like 20 different videos I've brought this up. And honestly, if you disagree with me at this point, I'm just going to fight you in real life, right? So 434, make it special cancelable. Make it so he works like just basically normal characters in the cast, right? 4-3 being a 10 frame mid. So hey, that's very respectable. Not a 9 framer, but you know what? He doesn't need a 9 framer. 10's fine. So 10 frame mid startup into a second hit. Easy to visually hit confirm into special cancel into whatever combo, just like normal characters work. Yeah, you got other stuff, you know, like you can do 1-4 in the shoulder, whatever, but guess what? That's a high, and it's a slow high. We'll talk about stand 1 in a minute here. But yeah, just a mid starter into a hit confirmable combo starter. That's it. Very basic, right? It even has a gap in it. And it's a pretty big gap, honestly. Pretty easy to flawless block, all that fun stuff, right? So I think at the absolute bare minimum, 434, special cancelable, so you can just go in the shoulder or whatever else you want, right? Just make him a normal character in that regard, and that alone, let alone anything else we'll talk about in this video, that alone shoots him up a tier. That alone takes him out of contention for potentially worst character in the game, because that is such a massive game changer for him. Now, past that, that is, to me, the only need with a capital N. Everything else, he can live without, even though he, once again, he should have some of these things, right? Absolutely, as we'll talk about. But that is the biggest thing since, honestly, day one. I remember, I think, within the first week of the game coming out, I'm like, how come I can't special cancel this move? So that is the biggest thing, 100% with a bullet. Now, following up from that. So, hey, that huge gap in 4-3-4, yo, get rid of it. That's really all I gotta say. There's no reason that gap really needs to be there, right? It's not like it's some overwhelming option he has that it needs such a big weakness, right? So get rid of the gap. It has no reason to be there to begin with. So just toss it in the garbage. And then with that said, all of a sudden, 4-3-4 becomes so much more of a valuable tool for Shao Kahn. Now, another thing to talk about is stand 1. Stand 1 actually is pretty decent, but the problem here is it is 9 frames. So when it comes to terms with like jailing and stuff, on top of the usual issues, as you can see right there, right? On top of that, like, it's just a bit slow, and like it's kind of awkward to work around sometimes, especially up close. Now, you know, it's got some value, like as far as like an anti-air goes, it's pretty good. Like if we do something like this here, as long as you're out ahead of it, you can actually anti-air with this pretty decently, right? And just kind of get conversions from there. but it's just too slow for a stand 1. 9 frames just, it don't work out for nobody. I would just say make it 1 frame faster, 8 frames, so it's on the slower end of things, you know. There's characters like, say, Collector have 8 frame jabs as well. Kind of normalize it in that manner. It does not need to be 9 frames. So that's a lot of changes for the normals, right? Normals wise, honestly, legitimately, those are the biggest deals. He has a lot of stuff that's really good. You know, he has a very solid uppercut. He's got one of the best sweeps in this game. He's got one of the best down 4s in this game. He has good tools to work with, right? But he just needs these small changes to help glue it all together. Now, that said here, let's talk about specials and variation stuff. It is my most true and sincere hope in Aftermath that when it comes to variations, they kind of just dumpster them, honestly. Like, let us create our own variation in ranked and tournament play, finally, because the variations for Shao Kahn just kind of all suck across the board, and even if you didn't buff a single move, you can definitely build a better variation than the presets that are given to you. But first, before we talk about variation moves, let's talk about the moves he has that are universal. So first up here, let's talk Hammer Lunge. Hammer Lunge is very cool in concept, right? Both with the fact that, you know, we can go quite far with it here. You can basically go, for the most part, full screen. And it has the will he, won't he steal a turn afterwards with EX. Very cool concept, right? But here's the thing. The actual, like, concept of it, the leap, you would think would be to bypass stuff, right? To, you know, big brain the other enemy. Haha, you did the thing. I'm going to leap over it and bonk you on the other end. Except it doesn't really work out that way. In no uncertain terms, Shao Kahn is, like, too fat. Like, any projectile here, whatever is going to happen, unless it's like one that goes across the ground specifically, he's always going to get balked. He's just too fat. Like, he eats up too much of the screen. Either his toes get tapped or something. Like, it's always going to be an issue, right? He can't use it as I believe was the original intention of the move. So, for a change for this move, I think it's a very fair, very simple change. Simply do this. His legs, like waist down specifically, just give it projectile invincibility. So, say in this exact scenario, if you make the hard call out like, hey, I know you're going to do the thing, then, hey, you can actually go past it. Unlike the current state where that's never going to happen in a million years. Leave it so waist up, he still gets hit, so projectiles that are angled upwards, like, say, Johnny's Variation 3 projectiles, or Jade's upward boomerangs, all that kind of stuff, it still beats him, right? So he still loses on a correct call to stop an airborne enemy. However, give it, like, to me, what should be its intended use to go past fireballs on a hard call-out. As for the other base specials, I think they're fine for what they are. You know, Scum Grab is what it needs to be. Spear, all I ever asked for back in the past, let's just make it do a little bit more damage. And you know what? He eventually got it. It does 8% now, that's fine. It's not a great projectile, but I don't think it was ever meant to be a great projectile, right? Stuff like Shoulder Charge. Shoulder Charge is just actually good. It is just actually a good move, so hey, that's fine. But now let's kind of go into the variation end of things. For Variation 1, Risen Khan. First up here, the Wrath Hammer Toss. Best thing about the variations, as far as I'm concerned. Mid-hitting projectile. Not the best, but whatever. Has a crushing blow attached to it, that's fine. It just works. It's not great, but it works, and that's honestly more than Shao Kahn can ask for most times. So I'm happy enough with that. But here comes the other problems. So we got the Ground Shatter move here. This guy. And it's cool that it hits low, right? You can kind of create like a very ghetto mix-up with forward 2 and 4 follow-up here, the overhead, and forward 2 into the low. I guess that's alright, right? And, you know, you get the X follow-up as well if you want it. Has a restand okay property, which is really awesome, except for one problem. In the restand here, if I can actually get it, let's try this again. There we go. The restand is negative. Normally the idea behind a restand is, I'm a little bit of a frame advantage ahead of you, so, you know, it's my turn, not your turn. Versus if you do the restand with this move, you literally have given up your turn, and now you've given the turn to the enemy. So it gives you a restand property where the restand is literally less than worthless. It actively helps your enemy to do it. And that's crazy, basically. So if we're to make a change for this, keep the restand. The restand idea is really cool, but change whatever frame data you need to change up to make it so he's not negative when he does it. And the taunts. Oh my god, what more needs to be said? These moves are insanely slow. It's cool that they provide the debuff / buff for Shao Kahn, and taunting is a very big part of Shao Kahn's moveset. Like, that's what makes the character famous. That's one of the biggest deals about the character is the taunts and the jibber jabber, trash talk, all that kind of stuff, right? But these moves are glacially slow. You are putting your life at risk. Even if you knock them down from full screen, a lot of characters can still punish it after getting up, right? Like, is that ridiculous? Like, you literally can go for spear, and yeah, you're plus 34, but since these moves are of almost 100 frames to start up, you're plus 34, they can still hit you on the other end of the screen before you're actually done. So yeah, I've said this, I don't even know how many times, but yeah, these moves need to be way faster. Like, half the speed is still maybe not fast enough. Like, maybe tone down the debuff / buff, so it's not as strong as it currently is, whatever, but as it stands, these moves just plain suck. Variation number 2, Risen Emperor. Annihilation, hey, good move. Thumbs up. This is a solid ass move. Straight up. Really good move. No worries there. Then we move on to the buff. So just like mentioned on Variation 1, the buff is slow for what it is. And it should still be faster. I'm thinking like 50 frames, something like that, right? If you want to tone down the effect, tone down the buff, sure, whatever. Just make the move fast so it's actually properly usable in a match, in a lot of realistic situations versus like, I do the spear, do this, hope you're a character that can't punish it, right? So I don't got much more to say than that. If you got to make it a weaker effect, go for it. Like, if you do a grab with the buff active, it does 20% instead of the usual 14. Maybe make it 18% or something. Like, lower the hammer buff damage, but just make it a faster move. And the Up Wrath Hammer here. All I got to say about this move is, and depending on your thoughts on the matter, you may disagree with me, I don't know. But, so here's the thing. So it has a big old gap in it, right? And, that's by design. This move is barely negative, right? But the thing is, it's too obvious. Like, there's nothing he can do to stop this from happening. So I would say remove the gap and just make it -6 or 7 on block. So some sort of poke or something, like trying to poke out someone like back 2 into up hammer. If you get it, awesome, whatever. If you don't, you lost your turn. Versus like if you didn't get it, you're dead, right? Because at bare minimum, you could just uppercut him out of it, and if you got decent enough timing, it's fairly easy to flawless block and get a full punish. So yeah, remove the gap and just make it -6 or 7 on block like many other special moves. And Variation 3 is just kind of super ho-hum. The up spear replaces Scum Grab. That's pretty alright. Honestly, that's probably the best part of this variation. The spear charge, which replaces the shoulder charge, is like basically a nerf instead of a buff. Like, you're getting a variation spot for a move that nominally should be better than the move it's replacing, except it has 19 frame startup versus 16 frame startup with the shoulder, which means the shoulder can punish, oh my god, so many more key moves in this game than this move can, and it doesn't even really give you that much more damage. So honestly, it's for a quote-unquote buff for the variation, it's like almost strictly a worse move than the move it replaces. And the Seeking Wrath Hammer here, why is it a high? It's already so slow as it is. Like, there's a cute gimmick you can do on knockdown to make sure people like fuzzy wake up into it, but it's not that good. If it was a mid, it'd make it much more valuable. And once again, just a point in favor of, abolishing the variation systems and letting us pick and choose what we want. He has the Air Wrath Hammer, which is not in any of the variations, and this move's actually sick. Like, this move, if you could actually use it, would be amazing here. The projectile is a pretty good size here, controls a very good amount of the screen here. The amount of negative it is on block is very reasonable for what it does. Not that you're going to get away for free doing it forever, but, it's not a crippling amount that it deters you from ever using the move, right? Like, so this move is awesome. Can't use it, don't get to play with it. Like, hey, come on. Like, this is what I'm trying to say, right? Like, let us pick and choose. Going in Aftermath is the best time to kind of wipe the slate clean, go in with a whole new game plan, right? So let us play around with moves we normally don't get to play around with. So yeah, that's just some ideas I have. Once again, I think all these changes are eminently fair, doesn't break a single thing about the character, wouldn't even put him to top tier if you implemented everything, right? Just some ideas to make him not the worst character in the game. If you're a bit younger, if you were born like the year 2000 or after, it might be somewhat difficult to understand why Shao Kahn means so much to a lot of old fogies like myself, because he's like the ultimate boss of fighting games. In the 90s, there were so many amazing fighting game bosses, you know, from M. Bison to Orochi and King of Fighters and all that, but Shao Kahn was above the rest. And to see him pre-order bonus, big marketing deal, and then he's just kind of, you know, it just sucks. And some small end-of-video things like, I don't know, F2 should either be a mid or 19 frames. Pick one. If it's a high, it should be 19 frames. If otherwise, just make it a mid. Still don't know why there's a gap in 4.4 when other characters with very similar moves don't have a gap. But hey, I guess. Sure. But yeah, so Shao Kahn. Get buffed. Bring him up, make him the true despot ruler he's meant to be. This should be the scariest character to fight in this game, and instead, he is what he is. So with that all said, once again, I hope the best for Aftermath. I hope it gives everyone what we want. Looking forward to a lot of the characters, to be sure. Looking forward to balance changes and seeing what they will do with the characters. And for now, my friends, I guess that is the end of this video. So hey, thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well. Go out and play some Mortal Kombat.